꾸준한 영어 테드쌤입니다. 영어 원서 읽기 500번 도전하고 있고요. 버니큘러 한 권으로 500권 읽기를 하기 위해서 처음에는 책을 통째로 읽었다가 지금은 챕터별로 나눠 읽기를 하고 있습니다. 중간에 챕터 1만 읽기 너무 지겨워서 각 챕터별로 한 번씩 읽어서 또 한번 올려봤습니다. 그러니까 다양한 시도를 하고 있는 거죠. 궁극적인 목표는 500권입니다. 쪼개서 읽든 한꺼번에 읽든 여러 번 나누어서 읽든 다양한 방법을 시도하고 있는데 한 챕터를 여러 번 읽는 것이 가장 효과적인 것 같다라는 생각을 여전히 지금 하고 있습니다. 다만 중간에 조금 지겨운 감이 있어요. 근데 그거를 이기기 위해서 이제 다양한 방법들을 같이 동시에 진행해보고 있는데 그런 것들도 꽤 도움이 되는 것 같습니다. 물론 다른 책들도 보려고 많이 애를 쓰고 있습니다. 그래서 영어에 대한 어떤 재미를 늘리기 위해서 시도를 하는 건데, 그리고 이 영어가 늘어간다라는 거에 대해서 여러 가지 생각을 하게 됩니다. 어떻게 하면 영어를 잘할까? 답은 하나밖에 없습니다. 꾸준히 끈질기게 하는 겁니다. 물론 우리나라 말이 아니기 때문에, 외국어이기 때문에 단어를 반드시 하는 것은 중요합니다. 효율적으로 가성비를 높이고 싶다면 단어를 무조건 많이 해야 됩니다. 단어를 무조건 많이 해야 되는데 무식하게 많이 하지 말고 문장이 곁들여질 수 있는 단어들을 함께, 문장과 함께 단어들을 익히는 방식으로 공부하는 게 더디 가는 것 같지만 분명히 앞서갈 수 있는 방법이 되는 거라고 확신을 합니다. 아침에 유튜브 동영상을 봤습니다. 그 왕좌의 게임에 나오는 그 난쟁이 왕자로 나오시는 분이죠. 이름이 피터 린워치인가? 잘 모르겠어요. 하여튼 그분인데 그분의 동영상을 봤어요. 우리는 소위 이제 handicapped person이죠, 그죠? 그러니까 약간 약점들이 있는 분들인데 그런 분들이 성공하는 걸 보면 대단히 감명을 받는데, 근데 그분이 우리를 더 동기부여를 해주는 이유는 제가 생각할 때는 29살까지 데이터 관리하는 일을 하셨는데 배우가 되려고 어떤 역할이라도 주저하지 않고 하겠다라는 일념에서 출발해서 지금의 자리에 오르게 됐다고 하더라고요. 그러니까 뭐든지 끝까지 끈질기게 추구하는 게 굉장히 중요합니다. 그리고 그 양반이 스피치에서 계속 얘기를 합니다. 완성된 후에 하는 것도 물론 그런 사람들도 있을 수 있지만 완성된 후에 자기를 세상에 보여주려고 하는 거는 굉장히 힘든 일이다. 있는 그대로의 자신을 보여주면서 끝까지 도전하라고 얘기를 합니다. 저도 이걸 하면서 영어 제가 원어민이 아니기 때문에 원어민처럼 완벽할 수는 없죠. 근데 가까이 가려고 애를 쓰는 거거든요. 왜 가까이 가려고 애를 쓸까요? 가까이 간 원어민과 가까운 발음을 하게 되고 발성을 하게 되고 그것들이 제 몸에 있게 되면 어떤 현상이 일어날까요? 지금까지 훈련만으로도 저는 귀가 굉장히 많이 열렸거든요. 귀가 많이 열리니까 어떻게 됩니까? 잘 알아듣게 됩니다. 잘 알아듣게 되면 사실 그 언어가 굉장히 재밌습니다. 그래서 제가 지금은 제 능력이 약하기 때문에 영어만 하고 있지만 이 방법이 저에게 좋은 결과를 가져다 준다면 다른 나라 언어들도 한번 도전해 볼 생각입니다. 늦은 나이지만 굉장히 언어를 공부한다는 게 재밌어졌어요. 그래서 더디 가고 아직까지 출중하지 못한 능력을 가진 보통의 사람이기 때문에 어떤 굉장한 신분들처럼 착착 보여줄 수는 없어요. 근데 꾸준히 한다라는 게 뭔지 꼭 한번 보여줄 수 있도록 하겠습니다. 그래서 오늘도 일단은 100번 읽어서 챕터별로 100번씩 읽기로 했기 때문에 지금은 챕터 1을 빨리 서둘러서 100번을 완성할 수 있도록 꾸준히 노력하도록 하겠습니다. 자, 그러면 한번 읽어보도록 하겠습니다. Chapter 1, The Arrival. I shall never forget the first time I laid these now tired old eyes on our visitor. I had been left home by the family with the admonition to take care of the house until they returned. That's something they always say to me when they go out. Take care of the house, Harold. You are the watchdog. I think it's their way of making up for not taking me with them. As if I wanted to go anyway. You can't lie down at the movies and still see the screen. and the people think you are being impolite if you fall asleep and start to snore. Or scratch yourself in public. No, thank you. I'd rather be stretched out on my favorite rug in front of a nice whistling radiator. But I digress. I was talking about the first night. Well, it was cold, the rain was pelting the windows, the wind was howling, and it felt pretty good to be indoors. I was lying on the rug with my head on my paws, just staring absently at the front door. My friend Chapter was curled up on the brown velvet armchair, which years ago he'd taken out as his own. I saw that once again he'd covered the whole seat with his cat hair, and I chuckled to myself, picturing the scene tomorrow, next to grasshoppers. There is nothing that frightens Chester more than the vacuum cleaner. In the midst of this reverie, I heard a car pull into the driveway. I didn't even bother to get up and see who it was. I knew it had to be my family, the Monroes. Since it was just about time for the movie to be over, after a moment, the front door flew open. There they stood in the doorway, Toby and Pete and Mom and Dad Monroe. There was a flash of lightning, and in its glare, I noticed that Mr. Monroe was carrying a bundle with tiny glistening eyes. Pete and Toby bounded into the room, both talking at the top of their lungs. Toby shouted, "Put him over here, Dad!" "Take your boots off, you're soaking wet," replied his mother, somewhat calmly, I thought, under the circumstances. "But Mom, what about the... First, stop dripping on the carpet." Would somebody like to take this?" asked Mr. Monroe, indicating the bundle with the eyes. "I'd like to remove my coat." "I will," Pete yelled. "No, I will," said Toby. "I found him. You will drop him." "I will not. You will too." "Mom, Pete punched me." "I will take him," said Mrs. Monroe. "Take off your coat this minute." But she became so involved in helping the boys out of their coats that she didn't take him at all. My tranquil evening had been destroyed, and no one had even said hello to me. I wimpled to remind them that I was there. "Harold," cried Toby, "guess what happened to me?" And then, all over again, everyone started talking at once. At this point, I feel I must explain something. In our family, everyone treats everyone else with great respect for his or her intelligence. That goes for the animals as well as the people. Everything that happens to them is explained to us. It's never been just a goodbye, Harold, or use the little box chatter at our house. Oh no, with us it's, "Hey Harold, Dad got raised and now we are in a higher tax bracket." Or, "Come on, sit on the bed, Chester, and watch this Wild Kingdom show. Maybe you will see a relative," which shows just how thoughtful they are. But after all, Mr. Monroe is a college professor and Mrs. Monroe is a lawyer, so we think of it as a rather special household, and we are therefore rather special pets. So it wasn't at all surprising to me that they took the time to explain the strange circumstances surrounding the arrival of the little bundle with the glistening eyes now among us. It seems that they had arrived at the theater late, and rather than trip over the feet of the audience already seated, they decided to sit in the last row, which was empty. They tiptoed in and sat down very quietly, so they wouldn't disturb anyone. Suddenly, Toby, who's the little one, sprang up from his chair and squealed that he had sat on something. Mr. Monroe told him to stop making a fuss and move to another seat. But in an unusual display of independence, Toby said he wanted to see just what it was he had sat on. An usher came over to their row to shush them, and Mr. Monroe borrowed his flashlight. What they found on Toby's chair was the little blanket bundle that was now sitting on Mr. Monroe's lap. They now unwrapped the blanket, and there in the center was a tiny black and white rabbit sitting in a shoebox filled with dirt. A piece of paper had been tied to his neck with a ribbon. There were words on the paper, but the Monroes were unable to decipher them because they were in a totally unfamiliar language. I moved closer for a better look. Now, most people might call me a mongrel, but I have some pretty fancy bloodlines running through these veins, and the Russian Wolfhound happens to be one of them, because my family got around a lot. I was able to recognize the language as an obscure dialect of the Caucasian mountain region. Roughly translated, it read, "Take good care of my baby," but I couldn't tell if it was a note from a bereaved mother or a piece of Romanian sheet music. The little guy was shivering from fear and cold. It was decided that Mr. Monroe and the boys would make a house for him out of an old crate and some heavy-duty wire mesh from the garage. For the night, the boys would make a bed for him in the shoebox.
Toby and Peter ran outside to find the crate, and Mrs. Monroe went to the kitchen to get him some milk and lettuce. Mr. Monroe sat down, a dazed expression in his eyes, as if he were wondering how he came to be sitting in his own living room in a wet raincoat with a strange bunny on his lap. I signaled to Chapter, and the two of us casually moseyed over to a corner of the room. We looked at each other. Well, what do you think? I asked. I don't think the rabbits like milk, he answered. Chester and I were unable to continue our conversation because a deafening crash commanded our attention. Pete yelled from the hallway, "Ma, Toby broke the rabbit's house!" I didn't, I just dropped it. Pete won't let me carry it. It's too big. Toby's too little. I'm not, you're too. Okay, fellas, Mrs. Mooney called out as she entered with the milk and lettuce. Let's try to get it in here, and with as little hysteria as possible, please. Chester turned to me and said under his breath, "That lettuce looks repulsive, but if there's any milk left, I get it." I certainly wasn't going to argue with him. I'm a waterman myself. At that moment, the crate arrived, barely standing the strain of being pulled in two directions at once. "Ma, Toby says he's going to keep the rabbit in his room. That's not fair. Harold sleeps in his room." Only sometimes, I thought, when I know he's got a leftover ham sandwich in his drawer. Toby's a nice kid, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't hurt that he shared his stash with me. It was, after all, at one of those late-night parties in Toby's room that I first developed my taste for chocolate cake, and Toby, noting my preference, has kept me in chocolate cake ever since. Pete, on the other hand, doesn't believe in sharing, and the only time I tried to sleep on his bed, he rolled over on me and pinned me by my ears so that I couldn't move for the rest of the night. I had a prick in my neck for days. "But he's mine," Toby said. "I found him." "You sat on him, you mean?" "I found him, and he's sleeping in my room." "You can keep Smelly Old Harold in your room, and Chester too, if you want to, but I'm going to keep the rabbit in mine." Smelly Old Harold? I would have bitten his ankle. But I knew he hadn't changed his socks for a week. Smelly indeed. Mr. Monroe spoke up. "I think the best place for the rabbit is right here in the living room on that table by the window. There's a light there, and he will get lots of fresh air." "Peter's taller than I am," Toby cried. "He will be able to see the rabbit better." "Too bad, Squirt." "Okay," said Mrs. Monroe through clenched teeth. "Let's put him to bed and make him comfortable, and then we can all get some sleep." "Why?" Pete asked. "I don't want to go to sleep." Mrs. Monroe smiled a little too sweetly at Pete. "Look, Ma," said Toby, "he's not drinking his milk." Chester nudged me in the ribs. "Didn't I tell you?" he asked. "Excuse me while I make myself available." "Hey," said Toby, "we gotta name him." "Can't that wait until tomorrow?" asked Mr. Monroe. The boys shouted in unison. "No, he has to have a name right now." I have to say I agreed with them. It took them 3 days to name me, and those were the 3 most anxious days of my life. I couldn't sleep at all, worrying that they were really going to call me Fluffy, as Mrs. Monroe had suggested. "Well, all right," sighed Mrs. Monroe. "What about, oh, say, Bun Bun?" "Uh-oh, there she goes again. I thought, where does she get them?" "Yuck," we all said. "Well then, how about Fluffy?" she offered hopefully. Peter looked at his mother and smiled. "You never give up, do you, Mom?" Meanwhile, Chester, who had also been named Fluffy for a short time, was rubbing against Mrs. Monroe's ankles and purring loudly. "No, Chester, not now," she said, pushing him aside. "He wants to help us name him, don't you, Chester?" Toby asked as he scooped him up into his arms. Chester shot me a look. I could tell this was not what he had in mind. "Come on, Harold," Toby called. "You've got to help her with the name, too." I joined the family and the serious thinking began. We all peeled into the box. It was the first time I had really seen him. "So this is your rabbit," I thought. "He sort of looks like a Chester, only he's got longer ears and a shorter tail and a motor in his nose." "Well," said Pete, after a moment, "since we found him at the movies, why don't we call him Mr. Johnson?" There was a moment of silence. "Who's Mr. Johnson?" asked Toby. "The guy who owned the movie theater." Pete answered. No one seemed to like the idea. "How about the Prince?" said Mr. Monroe. "Dad," said Toby, "are you kidding?" "Well, I had a dog named Prince once," he replied lamely. "Prince," I thought, "that's a silly name for a dog. We found him at a Dracula movie. Let's call him Dracula." Toby said. "That's a stupid name," said Pete. No, it's not, and anyway, I found him, so I should get to name him. Mom, you're not gonna let him name him, are you? That's a favoritism, and I'll be traumatized if we do. Mrs. Murnau looked in wonder at Pete. Please, Mom, please, Dad, let's name him Dracula, cried Toby. Please, 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 and with each please, he squeezed the chest a little harder. Mrs. Murnau picked up the bowl of milk and moved toward the kitchen. Chet followed her every movement with his eyes, which now seemed to be popping out of his head. When she reached the kitchen door, she turned back and said, Let's not have any more arguments. We'll compromise. He's a bunny, and we found him at a Dracula movie, so we'll call him Bunnicula. Bunnicula. That should make everybody happy, including me. What about me? Muttered Chester. I won't be happy until she puts down the milk. Well, guys, is that okay with you? She asked. Toby and Peter looked at one another and then at the rabbit. A smile grew on Toby's face. Yeah, Ma, I think the name is just right, Pete shrugged. It's okay, but I get to feed him. Okay, I'm gonna put the milk back in the fridge. Maybe he will drink it tomorrow. What about Chatter? Toby said, dropping the cranky cat to the floor. Maybe he would like it. Chatter made a beeline for Mrs. Muller and looked up at her plaintively. Oh, Chatter doesn't want any more milk, do you, Chatter? You've already had your milk today. She reached down, patted Chatter on his head, and walked into the kitchen. Chatter didn't move. Okay, bedtime, said Mr. Monroe. Good night, Bunnicula, Toby said. Good night, Count Bunnicula, Peter said sarcastically, in what I took to be his attempt at a Transylvanian accent. I may be wrong, but I thought I saw a flicker of movement from the cage. Good night, Harold. Good night, Chatter. I licked Toby good night. Good night, Smelly Harold. Good night, Dumb Chatter. I joined on Peter's foot. Mom, Harold joined on my foot. Good night, Pete. Mrs. Muller said with great finality as she came back into the living room and then more calmly, Good night, Harold. Good night, Chester. Mr. and Mrs. Muller went up the stairs together. You know, dear, Mr. Muller said, that was very clever, but Nicola, I could never have thought of a name like that. Oh, I don't know, Robert. She smiled as she put her arm through his. I think Prince is a lovely name, too. The room was quiet. Chester was still sitting by the closed kitchen door in a state of shock. Slowly, he turned to me. I wish they had named him Fluffy, was all he said. 예, 한번 읽었고요. 이제 거의 이제 60번 가까이 되거든요. 그러니까 이제, 그쵸. 60번 가까이 되면서, 이게 이제, 입에는 굉장히 붙는 것 같습니다. 굉장히 붙는 것 같고, 그리고 입에 붙다 보니까 어떻게 되냐면, 제가 이제 말을 한다? 얘기를 해준다는 느낌이 확실히 들어요. 그 전까지는, 지금 이 앞에도 chapter 2, 3, 4 이런 것들도 이제, 사실은 한 20번 읽었었기 때문에, 읽는 거는 그렇게 이제 별 부담스럽지는 않은데, 익숙치 않기 때문에 그러한 표현들이 제 몸에 완전히 배이지 않았기 때문에, 자연스럽게 나오는 부분은 좀 약해요. 그래서 그런 부분들이 있는데 chapter 1이나 editor's note 같은 경우는 이제 제 몸에 착 달라붙는 것 같아요. 그래서 좀 더 자연스럽고 좀 더 빠르게. 그러니까 빠르다라는 얘기는 뭐냐면 그냥 빠르게 발음하고 빠르게 읽는데 크게 부담스럽거나 불편하지 않아요. 처음엔 되게 불편했었거든요. 제가 막 이렇게 완전히 빠르게 하려고 노력할 때는 사실 입이 잘 같이 안 돌아가졌었어요. 사실 한국 사람이 쓰는 근육과 영미권 사람들이 쓰는 근육은 차이가 있겠죠. 발성이나 발음의 차이가 있으니까 공간을 확보해야 되고 공간을 덜 확보해야 되는 그런 차이가 있기 때문에 이게 점점 더 저의 몸에 익어가는 것 같습니다. 그래서 또 한번 읽어보겠습니다. 점점 이제 자꾸 이제 익숙해지니까 어떻게 되겠어요? 점점 자꾸 기억에 남겠죠? 기억에 남는다는 얘기는 제가 어떤 상황에 닥치더라도 이것과 유사한 표현을 써야 될 때가 온다면 제가 이런 표현들을, 근사한 표현들을 쓸 수 있다는 게 될 것 같아요. 그죠? 저도 해봐야 알겠죠? 네. 자, 한번 더 읽어보도록 하겠습니다. Chapter 1. The Arrival. I shall never forget the first time I laid these now tired old eyes on our visitor. I had been left home by the family with the admonition to take care of the house until they returned. That's something they always say to me when they go out. Take care of the house, Harold. You are the watchdog. I think it's their way of making up for not taking me with them. As if I wanted to go anyway. You can't lie down at the movies and still see the screen. And the people think that you are being impolite if you fall asleep and start to snore. And scratch yourself in public. No, thank you. I'd rather be stretched out on my favorite rug in front of a nice whistling radiator. But I digress. I was talking about the first night. Well, it was cold, the rain was pelting the windows, the wind was howling, and it felt pretty good to be indoors. I was lying on the rug with my paws on my head. Uh, I was lying on the rug with my head on my paws, just staring absently at the front door. My friend Chester was called up the brown velvet armchair, which years ago he had staked out as his own. I saw that once again he had covered the full seat with his cat hair, and I chuckled to myself, picture the scene tomorrow. Next to grasshoppers, there is nothing that frightened Chester more than the vacuum cleaner. In the midst of this reverie, I heard the car pulled into the driveway. I didn't even bother to get up and see who it was. I knew it had to be my family, the Mermots, since it was just about time for the movie to be over. After a moment, the front door flew open. There they stood in the doorway, Toby and Pete and Mom and Dad Mermot. There was a flash of lightning, and in its glare I noticed that Mr. Mono was carrying a bundle with tiny glistening eyes. Pete and Toby bounded into the room, both talking at the top of their lungs. Toby shouted, "Put him over here, Dad!" "Take your butch off, you're soaking wet," replied his mother, somewhat calmly, I thought, under the circumstances. "But Mom, what about the—" "First, stop dripping on the carpet. Would somebody like to take this?" asked Mr. Mono, indicating the bundle with the eyes. "I'd like to remove my coat." "I will," Pete yelled. "No, I will," said Toby. "I found him. You will drop him." "I will not. You will too." "Mom," Pete punched me. "I will take him," said Mrs. Monroe. "Take off your coat this minute." But she became so involved in helping the boys out of their coats that she didn't take him at all. My tranquil evening had been destroyed, and no one had even said hello to me. I whimpered to remind them that I was there. "Harold," cried Toby, "guess what happened to me?" And then, all over again, everyone started talking at once. At this point, I feel I must explain something. In our family, everyone treats everyone else with great respect for his or her intelligence. It goes for the animals as well as the people. Everything that happens to them is explained to us. It's never been just a good boy, Harold, or use the little box Chester at our house. Oh no, with us it's, "Hey, Harold, Dad got a raise and now we are in a higher tax bracket," or "Come, sit on the bed, Chester. What's this Washington show?" Maybe you will see a relative, which shows just how thoughtful they are. But after all, Mr. Mullen is a college professor and Mrs. Mullen is a lawyer, so we think of it as a rather special household, and we are therefore rather special pets. So it wasn't at all surprising to me that they took the time to explain the strange circumstances surrounding the arrival of the little bundle with the glistening eyes now among us. It seems that they had arrived at the theater late, and rather than trip over the fifth of the audience already seated, they decided to sit in the last row, which was empty. They tiptoed in and sat down very quietly, and so they wouldn't disturb anyone. Suddenly, Toby, who was the little one, sprang up from his chair and squealed that he had sat on something. Mr. Morno told him to stop making a fuss and move to another seat. But in an unusual display of independence, Toby said he wanted to see just what it was he had sat on. An usher came over to see their row to search them, and Mr. Morno borrowed his flashlight. What they found on Toby's chair was a little blanket bundle that was now sitting on Mr. Morno's lap. They now unwrapped the blanket, and there in the center was a tiny black and white rabbit, sitting in a shoebox filled with dirt. A piece of paper had been tied to his neck with a ribbon. There were words on the paper, but the Mormons were unable to decipher them. Because they were in a totally unfamiliar language, I moved closer for a better look. Most people might call me a mongrel, but I have some pretty fancy bloodlines running through these veins, and Russian Wolfhound happens to be one of them. Because my family got around a lot, I was able to recognize the language as an obscure dialect of the Carpathian Mountain region. Roughly translated, it read, "Take good care of my baby," but I couldn't tell if it was a note from a bereaved mother or a piece of Romanian sheet music. The little guy was shivering from fear and cold. It was decided that Mr. Morton and the boys would make a house for him out of an old crate and some heavy-duty wire mesh from the garage. For the night, the boys would make a bed for him in the shoebox. Toby and Peter ran outside to find the crate, and Mrs. Morton went to the kitchen to get him some milk and lettuce. Mr. Morton sat down, a dazed expression in his eyes, as if he were wondering how he came to be sitting in his own living room in a wet raincoat with a strange bunny on his lap. I signaled to Chester, and the two of us casually moseyed over to a corner of the room. We looked at each other. "Well, what do you think?" I asked. "I don't think the rabbits like milk," he answered. Chester and I were unable to continue our conversation because a deafening crash commanded our attention. Pete yelled from the hallway, "Ma, Toby broke the rabbit's house. I didn't. I just dropped it. Pete won't let me carry it. It's too big. Toby's too little. I'm 9, you're 2. Okay, fellas," Mrs. Muller called out as she entered with the milk and lettuce. "Let's try to get it in here with as little hysteria as possible, please." Chester turned to me and said under his breath, "This lettuce looks repulsive, but if there's any milk left, I get it." I certainly wasn't going to argue with him. I'm a waterman myself. At that moment, the crate arrived, barely standing the strain of being pulled in 2 directions at once. "My Tobe says he's gonna keep the rabbit in his room." "That's not fair. Harold sleeps in his room." "Only sometimes," I thought. When I know, he's got a leftover ham sandwich in his drawer. Tobe's a nice kid, don't get me wrong. But it doesn't hurt that he shared his stash with me. It was, after all, at one of those late-night parties in Toby's room that I first developed my taste for chocolate cake, and Toby, noting my preference, has kept me in chocolate cake ever since. Pete, on the other hand, doesn't believe in sharing, and the only time I tried to sleep on his bed, he rolled over on me and pinned me by my ears so that I couldn't move for the rest of the night. I had a cricket in my neck for days. "But he's mine," Toby said. "I found him." "You sat on him, you mean?" "I found him, and he's sleeping in my room." "You can keep a smelly old Harold in your room, and Chester too, if you want to, but I'm going to keep the rabbit in mine." Smelly old Harold? I would have bitten his ankle, but I knew he hadn't changed his socks for a week. Smelly indeed. Mr. Morris spoke up. "I think the best place for the rabbit is right here in the living room on that table by the window. It's light there, and he will get lots of fresh air." "Peter's taller than I am," Toby cried. "He will be able to see the rabbit better." "Too bad, Squirt." "Okay," said Mrs. Monroe through clenched teeth. "Let's put him to bed and make him comfortable, and then we can all get some sleep." "Why?" Pete asked. "I don't want to go to sleep," Mrs. Monroe smiled, a little too sweetly at Pete. "Look, Ma," said Toby. "He's not drinking his milk." Chester nudged me in the ribs. "Didn't I tell you?" he asked. "Excuse me while I make myself available." "Hey," said Toby, "we gotta name him." "Can that wait until tomorrow?" asked Mr. Monroe. The boys shouted in unison. "No, he has to have a name right now." I have to say I agreed with them. It took them 3 days to name me, and those were the 3 most anxious days of my life. I couldn't sleep at all, worrying that they were really going to call me Fluffy as Mrs. Monroe had suggested. "Well, all right," sighed Mrs. Monroe. "What about the Osage Bonbon?" "Uh-oh, there she goes again," I thought. "Where does she get them?" "Yuck," we all said. "Well then, how about Fluffy?" she offered hopefully. Pete looked at his mother and smiled. "You never give up, do you, Ma?" Meanwhile, Chester, who had also been named Fluffy for a short time, was rubbing against Mrs. Monroe's ankles and purring loudly. "No, Chester, not now," she said, pushing him aside. "He wants to help us name him. Don't you, Chester?" Toby asked, so he scooped him up into his arms. Chester shot me a look. I could tell this was not what he had in mind. "Come on, Harold," Toby called. "You've got to help me with the name too." I joined the family and the serious thinking began. We all peeled into the box. I was the first time I had really seen him. "So this is a rabbit," I thought. "He sort of looks like a Chester, only he's got longer ears and a shorter tail and a motor in his nose." "Well," said Pete, after a moment, "since we found him at the movies, why don't we call him Mr. Johnson?" There was a moment of silence. "Who's Mr. Johnson?" asked Toby. "The guy who owns the movie theater," Pete answered. No one seemed to like the idea. "How about the Prince?" said Mr. Monroe. "Dad," said Toby. "Are you kidding?" "Well, I had a dog named Prince once." He replied lamely. "Prince, I thought." "Ah, that's a silly name for a dog." "We found him at a Dracula movie, and let's call him Dracula," Toby said. "That's a stupid name," said Pete. "No, it's not, and anyway, I found him, so I should get to name him." "Mom, you're not gonna let him name him, are you? That's a favoritism, and I'll be traumatized if you do." Mrs. Monroe looked in wonder at Pete. "Please, Mom, please, Dad, let's name him Dracula," cried Toby. "Please, please, please," and with each please, he squeezed the Chester a little harder. Mrs. Monroe picked up the bowl of milk and moved toward the kitchen. Chester followed her every movement with his eyes, which now seemed to be popping out of his head. When she reached the kitchen door, she turned back and said, "Let's not have any more arguments. We'll compromise. He's a bunny, and we found him at a Dracula movie, so we will call him Bunnicula. Bunnicula. That should make everybody happy, including me. What about me? Muttered Chester. I won't be happy until she puts down that milk. Well, guys, is that okay with you? She asked. Toby and Pete looked at one another, and then at the rabbit. A smile grew on Toby's face. Yeah, Ma, I think that name is just right. Pete shrugged. It's okay, but I get to feed him. Okay, I'm gonna put the milk back in the fridge. Maybe he will drink it tomorrow. What about Chester? Toby said, dropping the frantic cat to the floor. Maybe he would like it. Chester made a beeline for Mrs. Monroe, and then looked up at her plaintively. Oh, Chester doesn't want any more milk, do you, Chester? You've already had your milk today. She reached down, patted Chester on his head, and walked into the kitchen. Chester didn't move. Okay, bedtime, said Mr. Monroe. Good night, Bunnicula, Toby said. Good night, Count Bunnicula, Peter said sarcastically, in what I took to be his attempt at a Transylvanian accent. I may be wrong, but I thought I saw a flicker of movement from the cage. Good night, Harold. Good night, Chester. I licked at Toby. Good night. Good night, Smelly Harold. Good night, Dumb Chester. I drooled on Peter's foot. Mom, Harold drooled on my foot. Good night, Pete, Mrs. Monroe said with great finality as she came back into the living room, and then more calmly, good night, Harold. Good night, Chester. Mr. and Mrs. Monroe went up the stairs together. You know, dear, Mr. Monroe said, that was very clever, Bunnicula. I could never have thought of a name like that. Oh, I don't know, Robert. She smiled as she put her arm through his. I think Prince is a lovely name, too. The room was quiet. Chester was still sitting by the closed kitchen door in a state of shock. Slowly, he turned to me. I wish they had named him Fluffy, was all he said. 오늘은 여기까지.